Go. You are live.
Hi, folks. Welcome. Last YouTube Live of the year. Jake. Classes have been posted. There's still some room. So if you're interested, I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go on. Tonight's topic is workbenches, the staple of the shop. I got a fair bit of experience building benches. So if you want to fire a question at me, I'll take it, Frick.
John in Chicago
Hey, John.
says, do you have any experience with the Moravian workbench? The portability intrigues me.
Heard the name, but no. I mean, if I saw it, maybe I would, I could. But no, I don't, I'm not pulling anything up in my head. I'm a big fan of the Scandinavian workbench, made popular by Frank Klaus and Tay Frid. I've worked on a Roubaud. Speaking of which, there's a really good book you should get. You want to grab that, Jake? If you are interested in this. It was written by Scott Landis back in I think the early 80s. It's called The Workbench Book. Everything is in the title. And it was published by Taunton Press. And the reason I like it is it gives you plans for 7 or 8 different style of workbenches. And it goes through and gives you just lots of information, thank you, on workbenches. So there it is. Scott Landis. Printed in Italy. What year was it published? '87. So he gives plans for, I'll tell you how many different benches. The Shaker workbench, which is an interesting bench if you like a full functional bench, lots of cabinet space underneath, tail vise and a leg vise. There are plans for the Klaus workbench, which is, mine is a hybrid, kind of a cross between Frank Klaus and Michael Fortune. Michael Fortune / Nelson bench, which is pretty straightforward, modified, a different style of tail vise, a little easier to build, than just a regular face vise over here, which I'm not a fan of. The Kirby workbench, which Ian Kirby, is real simple. It's just a slab top with another quick release face vise, and he did his with the intention being that using the top as something to clamp to. Actually, I thought there was more than that, but anyway. And then there's all kinds of information in here, not necessarily plans, but covers just about all the bases on benches, vices, the whole bit. Anyway, if you can find it, it's really good, really good resource book. Next, Frick.
This one's from Mike Thompson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Hi, Mike.
Rob, what is your opinion on an under bench tool chest? What are the pros and cons of having a tool chest under the bench? Thank you.
If you're young, great. If you're old, no. You'll find that the interesting thing about woodworking is people tend to do it well into their advanced years. And not very many people start it and drop it. So if you get into it when you're 65, it'll be the last thing you'll be doing where you still have health. If you get into it in your early 20s, you'll still be doing it when it's the last thing you can do due to your health. So with that in mind, it's like building your final home and having it 3 stories and lots of stairs. Not a good idea. So I try to think about that a little bit, so I'm not having to squat down and do anything down there. So if I was going to have a tool cabinet, I would have it right here where it's easily within reach. And this stuff is lower, but there's nothing down below that I use on a regular basis. So I wouldn't want tool cabinet underneath. That would not be my preference. And you asked me for my opinion, so there you go. And for that reason. Next, Rick.
Trevor Decker in Lloydminster.
Hey, Trevor, Lloydminster, Alberta or
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan?
I'm currently building an English joiner's bench, Paul Sellers style. The bench is being built out of old growth fir salvaged from a 100-year-old grain elevator in Alberta. Would you recommend the from edge being a hardwood like maple to wear better and support a tail vise dog system?
Read that last sentence.
Would you recommend the edge being a hardwood like maple to wear better and support a tail vise dog system?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if it's old growth fir, meaning the growth rings are really small, it's going to be pretty tough stuff. So I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't expect you're going to get that much more out of a piece of maple to justify the extra work. Go with if you want to do it as an accent wood. I've always, first bench I built using maple and bloodwood. This bench was maple and mahogany. Have I only built 2 benches? I think so.
I know, I think it's 3.
Where's the third one? Oh no, I meant that I used.
Oh.
I built one. Yes, I did. I built a third one. I sold it. It was maple and walnut. And then I built one for Ivar. What was that made out of? That was maple and that was way back. I forgot how many I built. So I'd like some accent wood in there, but I don't think I wouldn't do what you're suggesting for any function other than appearance. Next, Frick.
Brian O'Donnell in the chat
Hey, Brian.
says, "Hi Rob, I'm building your Cosman workbench, but with a Baltic birch top. Would you recommend lacquer or tongue oil?" He has 1850 in brackets for the top, given it's not MDF.
You know what? The only reason for a finish is just to keep glue from sticking to it. So if you're set up to spray lacquer, it's a lot faster. Shoot, you can spray the Benchtop in a fraction of the time that you could oil it. And if you're not set up to spray, lacquer dries really quickly, which makes it a pain to apply. The advantage of tongue oil is you don't need any equipment. Put it on with a brush, wipe it off with a rag. The downside is you've got to put multiple coats in order to get any kind of a buildup, and you've got 12 to 24 hours drying time in between. So not the most convenient, but certainly the easiest in terms of not having the experience or the equipment with spraying. So either one would work. This is tongue oil. The ones we make and sell are lacquer, but has nothing to do with the wear properties. It's just protection against getting it dirty and having glue stick to it. Next, Frick.
Alfred Borg in the chat
Alfred.
says, "What is considered an appropriate height for a workbench?"
There's no answer. There's no right answer for that, but I'll give you some examples. So I am, what am I, Ken? Oh, 5 foot.
Next to me.
I am, I think 5 foot. That says 5'8". So it was with sneakers on, 5'8". My bench top height is 36 and a half, which I like because it gives you you're more upright. Now, give an example of Tay Frid, or not Tay Frid's, but Frank Klaus. Because I think Frank was 6 feet tall, or is 6 feet tall, and his bench height is 33. So Frank's a lot taller than me, and his bench height is 33. Let's see what. Did I say if Tay Frid has his in here? I don't know how tall Michael Fortune is, but his bench height is 35 35 3/4. That's closer to mine. And Ian Kirby. Ian's not that tall. Ian might only be 5'7", and Ian's is 34 inches. So nobody's working at dining room table height, which would be 29 to 30. So, you know, I always tell the guys when they come to the class here, I said, take advantage of the fact that you're going to be here, and we can adjust the bench height. And you're going to spend 6 days working on it. That'll give you a pretty good indication of what's comfortable and what isn't. And then you can go back and build it accordingly. So I'll sum this up by saying, if you're doing a lot of joinery, build high. If you're doing a lot of planing, build low. If you're doing both, build somewhere in the middle. And you can always use a Moxon vise to gain. Where is that? Do we have?
The mini, it's right here.
Well, I just want to put it on and actually see what my.
Right in front of the
This is our new mini Moxon vise that will be out quite shortly. So when I am, can I, Jake, one clamp? Never mind. I can get it. Put it back on there. So let me just give you. Working on my regular vise, on my bench, I would be sawing at 38 inches. And if I was using a Moxon, what did I just say? 38? .41.5, so 38 to 41.5, so 3.5 inches in height, which, depending on your condition of your back, might be a big deal. Next, Fert.
This is from Liquid Rock Aquatics in the chat.
What's his name?
Well, it's a business. Liquid Rock Aquatics.
Liquid Rock.
Rob, if you were adding a vise to an existing workbench without any vices currently in order, what is your preferred option?
Well, I'll give you two. For ease of use, did we bring one in?
What?
We can, Schoberg. Is there?
Oh, I put it back on the shelf because I was going to get the one out of the package.
If you want ease of installation, and a really good vise too. We sell a boatload of them because they're easily the best vise of its type. Jake, can you shoot the camera over this way? Okay, so as long as you have the overhang, and you need about 14 inches. So you need 14 inches clear underneath. And if your bench that you're mounting to is not a slab, meaning it's top and bottom are parallel, then you're going to have to pad the bottom out. Add some material to it. This goes on. There's 8 lag screws or screws that hold it in place. There's 2 little tabs. I'll show it to you when it comes. 2 little tabs that you have to route 2 little slots on the underside of the bench with a 1/4 inch router, about 1 inch long, maybe 3/4. You have to drill about a 2 inch diameter hole, maybe 1/2 inch deep. Thanks, Ken. All right. So when this fits up underneath, 2 little tabs. You route the 2 little slots to hold these tabs. 4 bolts or lag screws or screws. 8, 4 on each side, right? And then this nut sticks up above, so you don't need to be 1/8 of an inch deep, and it would only need to be 1.5 inches in diameter. So just a partial hole, and then you bolt it in place. It's really, really easy. Now I'll show you the other big advantage of it. What do these cost?
$350. I think it's $360.
So there's 2 bolts, one on either side. There's a nut welded on the side and another locking nut. And those are designed so when you open this up, you have this frame. So the frame consists of these tubes that are 1.5 by 1, no, 1.5 by 3/4. Welded in front, welded to this. There's a piece of, what's this stuff called? Phenolic resin, which is kind of a slippery plasticky stuff. There's a piece here, and there's a piece here. And then there's a loose bar here. And these bolts that I showed you underneath push against the bar, which squeezes everything. So what it does, it prevents this thing from racking. Now, just in case you're new to this and you don't understand what racking is, when you're trying to clamp something, the downside to this type of bench is that you have, vise, is that you have these bars underneath. So I can grab hold of, we've modified this, I can grab a hold of 5 3/4 inches and hold it securely. Don't over tighten. The harder you pull, the more this wants to twist or rack, and when it does, this side is loose and this side is tight, which means you're trying to saw and it vibrates on you. So you can remove almost all of that racking by tightening these up, and you want them to be tight enough that there's no racking, but not so tight that you can't wind the thing in. The phenolic resin does a pretty good job of allowing that to move quite freely. You have to add your own jaw. We make them. If you don't have the capacity, we actually make and sell these jaws. So you can make the jaw as wide as you want. You could capture even more. Of course, the farther away from you get from it, the more it's going to want to flex. But so a maple jaw, and then we use this stuff, and we actually sell this as well, don't we? They buy it separately? Mm-hmm. So it's a cork and rubber, which we're going to start selling more of it because I'll show you what don't let me forget to show them. So there's what it is. It comes with a cell adhesive back, and it's cork rubber combination. Why is it so good? Well, it is really grippy, so when you put something in there with a fraction of the amount of pressure you would need, it doesn't move, and it protects it. Now, on a quick side note, we've been doing a project using a lot of veneer. And a long time ago in a faraway land, I had some linoleum that came out of our house, and it had a cushion attached to it. So it was vinyl flooring with a cushion, and it was really good for gluing things up. So you would put a little piece of it down there, and then when you clamp it, the fact that there was cushion in there means if the surface wasn't perfectly level, the cushion would still apply pressure quite evenly. Haven't been able to find it since. Have tried several things. Could never find anything that would actually push back hard enough. This stuff is perfect. You can shove your thumb into it, but it's pretty resilient. So we made these so that we could clamp on to the putting on a drawer front with a veneer drawer front, clamp with this, and it would apply that pressure evenly, and it was just great. So that would be my first choice for a refit on an existing bench. Actually, I don't know if it would be my first choice. This might be my first choice in terms of really easy, but this isn't going to do you any good if you're wanting to plane. This is good for cutting joinery, holding things. So this is our.
Schoberg would be number 1.
Huh? No, I don't know. I'm going to change that. Well, yeah.
It has to be number 1.
Right. Because the Schoberg you can do both.
It has versatility.
Yeah. Excuse me. This would be number 2. Now you can buy Cosman vises anywhere. We provide the hardware. You make your own. We've made lots of improvements to the hardware. I'll show you that. But this would be my a close second. So this is a Cosman vise. The front jaw sits lower than this piece, so that when you put it on your bench, you push it up tight, and then that keeps it flush. This jaw stays flush with the front of your bench. You just install real easy with 2 clamps. I'm using F clamps, easiest to work with. And if you're making your own, you can increase the capacity. I think this allows for 17 inches. So the nice thing about this is you have uniform clamping pressure across the entire width. So you drop your piece down in there, and as you tighten this wheel and this wheel, you clamp across the entire face. What we did to modify these is we drill and tap the hand wheel and add these little, what are they called?
Revolving knobs.
Revolving knobs. So instead of sitting here, turn like that, which is a pain, you can just wind that in. We spring loaded them. So when you're winding this back, that third hand no longer is necessary because there's springs in there and it brings the jaw back. And finally, this nice piece, nice addition, when it comes to cutting dovetails, and you want to be able to have your piece sitting plumb, you take this piece off, set that down in there like that, wind in your jaws, put this piece back on, and now your piece is standing plumb in your vise, which is critical if you want to develop any muscle memory. Then when it comes time to doing the transfer of tails to pins, heaven forbid I got to use a piece of MDF to show this. Oh, there's a piece of wood. Take your tailboard out. Take your pin board, set that in there. This piece flips up, it's hinged. Magnets hold it in place. And now when you set that on there, that takes the place of the way we used to do it with a hand plane when you were using your regular bench vise. And that allows you to transfer tails to pins. So that would be choice number 2. Choice number 1 would be the Schoberg. Easily, I worked on, shoot, I can't even remember how many places that I have taught. I'm sure it would have to number, and well, I know I've taught in over 50 woodcraft stores, so there's 50 right there. And then I've taught over in England, I've taught in a couple of different places, taught in Canada in multiple places, so there's probably close to 100. And worked on every imaginable vise, some of the worst, oh my goodness, terrible memories. Absolutely terrible vices that just did nothing. That is the best, the easiest to install. Am I being overly simplistic in saying this is a 20-minute install?
Definitely within a half an hour.
Yeah, really easy. Super easy to do. Okay, wow. Next, Fred. Good question.
Sherwood R in the chat says,
Who's that? Sherwood?
Sherwood R's username.
Is that his name? Oh, okay.
Username, yeah. I made the RobBench with the 3-inch MDF top, thinking about adding a tool tray, but wondering the best way to connect the tool tray to the MDF.
Okay, good. We'll show you that. Hold that thought. So this is we do these live events so that we can give you the opportunity to help fund our Purple Heart Project. We bring in 42 combat wounded veterans each year. We treat them to a 6-day, very intense hand tool woodworking course. I like to tell people we teach them the skills to build a piece of furniture like it was 200 years ago. No power, no dust, no danger, no noise. We cover their travel expenses. We house them, we feed them. In US dollars, we send each vet home with approximately $4,000 worth of premium tools. And thanks to Jack Lane and the Bench Brigade, We have volunteers all over the world that build a bench to our specs and personally deliver it to the vets so that they have it. We've delivered well over 150, I think it's close to 170 benches to date. We've had soldiers that we've brought in. We've had a couple come from Australia. We've had a couple from Denmark. We've had one from Ireland. We've had the majority come from the US, and we had a fair share from Canada. So, cost us about, last year's expense was $350,000 US. This year, I can't imagine being any cheaper. If you would like to participate, this is an opportunity for us to more than just thank them, but to actually show some appreciation. I don't know what it is about woodworking, but it's therapeutic. It gives them something to focus on. It takes their minds and puts it in a good place. Wood is good. I think that's on the back of my shirt, isn't it? Wood is good. And whatever we can do for them, the more the merrier. Now, if I can remember that question, just give me one little hint.
Can you give people asking a quick update on Bo, if you have one?
Oh, I will. What was I mean, I guess this guy's question.
The question was, I made the RobBench with the 3-inch MDF top, thinking about adding a tool tray.
Oh, tool tray, yeah.
Wondering the best way to connect it to the MDF.
Whose tool tray is this? Oh, Major Matt, Canadian vet. So the easiest way to do this is...
Can you flip that around?
Yeah, I'm going to. The easiest way to install it, you're going to, of course you're going to do dovetails. So you've got 3 pieces. Determine the width that you want. I'll give you some examples. I think this one is 6 inches from the inside here to the outside. So inside the tool tray, you got a little better than 5 1/4. So you've got a dovetailed corner here, you got a dovetailed corner there. Then you have a groove to hold the bottom that goes in those 3 pieces. But you want your bottom to be thick, maybe 1/2 inch thick. And then you leave the bottom wider, so the bottom in this case comes, the bottom is probably 8 inches wide. And then you simply, when you put this in place, you screw the bottom up into the bottom side of the tool tray. You may have to notch it to get it around your legs, but that's not a big deal. Now this one didn't get pulled tight for some reason, but typically that would be up there nice and tight, and that'll hold it just fine. That's the easiest way to do it. Keep your tool tray sitting below the surface so it doesn't interfere. And that works. We've got a tool tray on each one of our shop class benches. Bo, well, I'm heading there right after tonight. So Bo has been moved to the Stan Cassidy Rehabilitation Center in Fredericton, New Brunswick. I haven't had anything good to say about the Canadian healthcare for a long time. This is the exception to the rule. It's a wonderful facility. The best part is it doesn't smell like a hospital. Great staff. They only have 15 patients. And he's been there for, I think, is this coming up on 4 weeks?
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks.
I think tomorrow will be, he's been there 4 weeks. Staff are fantastic. I've never once, and either Kim or Kim mostly, but I'll stay there tonight and tomorrow with him. And we have a bed right in the room with him. So, because he's at a point where you have to do everything for him. He's, as far as movement, he can move his arm, both of his arms, he can move like this. And he just recently started being able to move his wrist about that much. That's all. So, you got to scratch him if he needs to be scratched, and feed him and all the rest of the stuff. But he's managing to keep his spirits about him, which is tough considering the situation. It was 12 weeks ago, I think, that it occurred. So it's coming up on 3 months. And I'll tell him that you were inquiring. I'm trying to get his weight up. He doesn't have much of an appetite, but he needs to eat because his body has consumed a lot of his muscle mass. Lost a lot of weight. So, thanks for asking.
Okay, so we could take a question from Fredericton, actually, since you mentioned Fredericton. This is from Dasuki Photography, is their username. Their question is, what would be your design ideas, your do's and your don'ts for workbenches that their back will be against a wall? So I'm assuming the person using
so
it.
a lot of shops are small, and you got to have your bench against the wall. It's not that bad actually, because rarely am I ever on that side of my bench. Rarely do I ever do anything where what I'm working on exceeds the width of my bench. So I don't think there's any issues. It's nice that you could secure the bench to the wall so it doesn't move, make it a little more solid. Don't make it really deep, because you can only use so much. So my bench, the usable part is 24 inches. So I wouldn't go any more than 24 inches. The actual bench part is 17. Then you have the tool tray. So the part that I work on is 17 inches, and I've never said, gee, I wish I had, I wish that was another half a foot or foot wider. So nothing down here that I can think of. You want your lighting right, I'd have light somewhere shining from the wall down. Your sharpening station could be right in here. That wouldn't interfere. Of course, your shoulder vise, that wouldn't interfere. I think you'd be fine. If anything, I probably would make it so that if I needed to move it, I think I would still have it on a base. I wouldn't be supporting it on the wall. I think I would have it on a base, and I might make it so that you can secure it to the wall if you want to, but you don't have to. How's that? I'd still want that portability. Just for that one time, and after you've been doing stuff for a while, you realize, shoot, if I could only have gotten to the other side. Which I can't even remember the last time I said that, but of course, sure, as soon as it wasn't a possibility, it would end up happening. By the way, if you are a combat wounded vet that has been to our program, any one of the 220-ish, and you're on tonight, we would love to hear from you. It brings a great memory to us, and we give you a shout out. And I believe Luther is back in the country. He and his wife Erica have been cruising the South Pacific. They just spent some time with Tony down in Australia. Next, Frick, please.
Bill Pappas would like to know
Hi,
when
Bill.
the workbench casters will be back in stock.
Jake, workbench casters?
A week or two at least.
Why, you're just waiting for the website to be built?
And pictures
Or
of the
the
video.
pictures and video? So if he wanted them right away, he could call Gina and get them? So he doesn't have to wait?
Yeah. But they're not the same, so no.
They're different. We switched brands. They're better than what we had. We don't have to go in and modify them. So
They're better from the factory than what we would do.
right. If you didn't hear Jake, which you probably didn't, they are better as we buy them than what we had. We had to go in and modify the other ones, and Willie got tired of doing it. So, and when your fabricator's 83 or 4.
100.
When you got an 84-year-old fabricator and he says, I'm not doing any more of these. I've done 600 of them and I'm not doing any more. We couldn't argue with him. So if you give Gina a call on the toll-free number on Monday, she might be able to help you.
Ron Bingham
Hey, Ron?
brings up a good point with the bench against the wall is using a shooting board.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. So if that was the case, now that would be limiting, right? But you know what? How often do I ever go out well, maybe.
You always do. Especially.
Might be, yeah, the plane is going to run long.
So
But by how much? Where's my shooting board?
No, it's over here.
Yeah, but there's another one here, isn't there? Don't I have 2 shooting boards?
Just put your plane on that shooting board that's on the bench.
Oh, it's right here. Duh.
The one that's hiding.
So when I'm using a shooting board, I always use my grip. So when I'm shooting, so at the worst, And if that might be solved if you went with an 18-inch shooting board. So I'm about another 2.5 inches out. So if you went to an 18-inch shooting board instead of a 24, you'd be fine.
Or you could just make your tool tray that much bigger, and that tool tray would keep you away from the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you... The other thing I thought of is you could mount it on either end. But then, yeah, well, and that's okay too. You just, if you're right-handed, you're going to mount it on this end of the bench. And if you're left-handed, you're going to mount it on that end of the bench. So, yeah, an 18-inch shooting board and you'll be fine. But thanks for bringing that up, Ron. Next, Rick.
A little bit off topic, but Josh Warren from Utah
Hey, Josh.
says, like you, I came up through the BYU technical education major. I'm having troubles with my students settling for less than perfect drive and effort, resulting in subpar work. What is your advice?
A big boot. I was actually talking to Rex, my good friend Rex Birmingham, who my son Rex behind the camera, behind the bench is named after. And Rex teaches at a school, a high school in Utah. And his classes are really popular. But you know what? You're fighting a cultural war. I saw somebody sent me a little clip, Santa Claus sneaking in with his sack of toys, and goes, boy, it sure is a lot easier to sneak in without being noticed these days. And there's in the cartoon where all the kids are sitting there glued to their phone, oblivious to what was going on around them. So what do you do? Rex said something interesting. He says, whatever project they're working on, if it's fun, then they're going to be into it. But how do you teach craftsmanship? Wow. That's the reason why I never did it. People that come to me because they're fussy and they want to do it as good as possible. Every once in a while, and it's not very often, somebody will sneak into our class who's a good enough type of person and they don't fit. We have one way of doing it, and what I teach them is you do it until you can no longer see room for improvement. Because how can you go beyond that if you can't and unable to judge? But yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know if anybody's ever mastered that, other than the fact that you find something they're really interested in, and hopefully they're going to want the very best under those circumstances. Good luck. Important job you're doing. We have to restore good old Yankee ingenuity and know-how and become the dominant place where things are built again, if that's possible. Next, Rick.
Can you talk a little bit about...
I say we because we could end up being the 51st state.
Can you talk a little bit about Purple Heart Project, like the reoccurring donations? Importance?
Oh, yes. That's right, too. Thank you, Rick. So what we're doing now, we started this... our job's going to be a whole lot easier when we know that we can rely on certain amount of donations. So we'll give away about a $300 prize tonight for every $1,000.
Nope.
What? I'm sorry, thank you. For every 10 reoccurring donations. So, Ken, you have a microphone? Yeah. Can you pick it up? Jake, can you swivel the camera around? Because this is your chance to sing.
Yeah. Oh, Ken doesn't know he's doing it.
Ken's going to tell you how to do a reoccurring donation.
Oh, so just go to the...
Wait a minute, hold on. This is Ken Anthony. Ken's our shop manager, but he's also, I keep wanting to call you the president, but what's your actual title?
Executive Director.
He's the executive director of the Purple Heart Project Canada, and he sits on the board of the Purple Heart Project USA.
Okay.
Yep, now tell them.
So just go to our website, thepurpleheartproject.org, and right at the top on the right, you'll see a donate button. Canadian flag, American flag, so whichever country you're going to donate to. And then once you do that, you'll have the option again at the top right to select a recurring donation or a one-time donation. And that's how you do it.
Good. Jake, can you bring that back? So it's really nice if it's a reoccurring donation because, as I mentioned, then we can rely on, know that we've got a certain amount of funds so we can accomplish what we have to accomplish. So rather than begging and pleading and cajoling for you to donate each time, if
Ken, just describe that one more time. His mic was not on.
Ken's mic wasn't on?
The wrong thing was plugged in.
Oh,
Wait, just a second. It's still not.
I'll do it.
Yeah, you do it. You surely can remember that.
Yeah, so if you go to you have to put in that, THEPurpleHeartProject.org, and in the top right-hand corner, it says donate, and you choose your country. Nation, and you can put in your happens. And then every month, you will be blessed tremendously. And so will we, knowing that we are able to meet our obligations. Now, Frick,
Okay.
good? Thanks for bringing that up. So if we get, for every 10 reoccurring donations that we pick up tonight, new ones, we will give away a $300 prize. You ready, Frick?
Yeah. This one's from Lee Hingle in the chat.
Hi, Lee.
Wait, you give me a mic check real quick.
Yes? Are they not hearing me?
They're saying the audio was out completely, but we were just moving some cables around. Okay, Lee Hingle says, Rob, what is your preference, round or square dog holes?
Round or easy, you drill a hole. And the nice thing about the round ones, these are the ones that we sell. They're aluminum, which means you hit it, you're not going to destroy your plane. But they also have an angled face. So when you build, not square, rectangular holes, you have to cant them. So all of the ones facing the vise are slanted like this. All of the ones in the vise are slanted like that. So when you clamp something and it's going to give a little bit, it still has hold down pressure. If you had them standing 90 degrees and you clamp it, then they're going to open up a little bit and your workpiece pops out. So you want to have a little bit of a cant, 2 or 3 degrees if I remember correctly. The nice thing about these bench dogs, they've got that built in. So you just you bore a 90-degree hole, put this in there, and you're good to go. There's a spring on the side that keeps it in position. And this is a good one because the spring goes end to end. I had some one time that had a little tiny ball bearing, and it would just wear out a groove, so no longer held. I prefer to do the square ones. I can't really tell you why. I try to make up some reason, but it wouldn't be very convincing for the amount of work. But I need to make some new bench dogs. So mine are spring loaded. So I've got a piece of, what is that, Jake?
Babinga.
I think it's Babinga. So there's a T-shaped slot cut in here. There's a T-shaped piece of Babinga. And there's a hole drilled in this end and in that end. And there's a spring out of a ballpoint pen. There's a part of a hole drilled on the bottom side of the piece of Babinga. So when you put it into place, the spring drops down the hole, keeps it from falling out, and gives it that little bit of flex. So when you put it down there, it'll stay anywhere. So I like the square ones. But if you want,
I would say one benefit to the square ones is that they don't pivot, they don't turn. You don't have to line them up.
yeah, there's some small benefits, but really, when it comes to the actual, build them, you could do round holes in your bench, and the time it takes to drill one hole times the number of holes, versus square ones. It has to be glued up because you're not going to cut a hole like that. So this piece, you cut those notches, then you got to clean. If you're doing with a dado head, you got to go in and you got to clean that. You know, it's going to leave you those little rabbit ears on the ends. That's just a lot of extra work. A lot of extra work for probably not the benefit that I've always thought of them as. So I'd say go with the round ones, unless you have time. Next, Rick.
Roy Gilliard.
Hey, Roy.
Hey, Rob, I have the Schoberg Vise from you, and I swear by it. Can you buy the work drive shaft separately from you should it wear out over time?
The work drive, you mean the screw? Is that what it means, Jake? And you know, you're the first one to ever ask. I would imagine.
From Schoberg, not from.
No, we don't stock them. You have to get them from Schoberg, and I don't think Schoberg sells direct to the public. So, if you need it, contact us, and we'll see if we can get it for you. But I've never had one. Wear out. We got to remember that, I mean, even if you use it every day, all day, you're not really wearing that much, and it's slow, and you can put a little bit of grease on it, so it'll last you a long time. Might be a grandkid thing. Next, Frick. Any vets saying hello, Ken? What are we doing, Frick?
If he has vets, we can take them.
Okay.
Yep.
Brent Nelson's on.
Brent, slowest dovetailer, does great work, and Brent is recently became a board member on the Purple Heart Project. So Brent does a lot of work behind the scenes. He was my assistant here in September, this past year.
Yeah.
September. Happy New Year, Brent.
Michael Delboy,
Michael, Happy New Year to you too.
Mark Smith.
Oh, Mark Smith. Yeah, Mark has never been to the class, but Mark worked here. So Mark was a combat wounded Canadian vet whose wife is now in the military. And he is he coming? I thought he was, no. Anyway, howdy, Mark. Mark did a lot of the work when we did the renovations, built the stairs, going upstairs to our offices, and it was great help. Perfect, landed here at just the perfect time.
Jeff O'Connor's on.
Jeff O'Connor, the name sounds familiar. Is that E-R or O-R?
He's the guy with the puffy shirts.
Oh, right, but where's the medium, as Super Dave used to say. Jeffrey, what did I want to tell you about Jeff? Just, so when you need to check out, and you need to go to, Jeff, put the site in there. So here's a little tidbit. The Patriot Awards were given out a couple of weeks ago on Fox News, and Jeff was hired to build part of the award. So he did and the flag, the top corner is blue, and it was resin impregnated and, resin impregnated, purple and blue infused curly maple. And so now he's offering, he's had some left over, so he's turned those pens, his wooden pens, and it's got some other projects on there that you'll be able to buy and have a piece of those Patriot Awards. So check that out on his, I think it's on o'connorwoodworking.com. And I think he's also doing it as, I should mention that too, he's doing it as a fundraiser for Purple Heart Project. Doesn't get any better than that. Big shout out to Jeff. Thanks, brother.
And our very own Sid, John Borden, is on.
Sydney Borden. Sid works here. What does he do?
Whatever we ask him to.
Yeah, he moves me around. We were moving something one day, and I was up on top of this thing, and I had to get down. He says, here. He just grabs me, sets me down. Sid's about that wide through the shoulders. 32 years combat engineer, Canadian Infantry, Canadian Army. And he also runs our CNC too. He does all the cutting out of the saw handles. He's going to get a lot busier. Anybody else?
John Spicer's on. I'm not sure if he's a vet or not.
John Spicer.
He was in the Tour Nova Scotia. He's in class 25.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly. From Yarmouth? Truro. Why did I think Yarmouth? Huh?
He drove the Goldwing.
Yeah, I remember, but for some reason I was thinking Yarmouth.
Yeah,
John?
Ken Stewart from the Kansas Bench Brigade is on.
Who?
Ken Stewart. He's on the Kansas Bench Brigade.
Oh, yeah?
And
Thank you, Ken.
Patrick Glenn Sherwood from Wisconsin's PHP class number 26. And he now helps Luther write articles for our newsletter, PHP newsletter.
Oh, really? Well, thank you. Does he do the spelling? I hope.
Don't know. That's it for now.
Frick?
All right. Stern Natus.
Stearns his first name,
Well,
S-T-E-R?
it's a username. Stern
Oh,
Natus.
okay.
Yeah. Hello. Is there a benefit to using a shoulder vise versus a Moxon vise on the bench? Thanks.
Is there a benefit to using a shoulder vise
Versus a Moxon.
Moxon vise? Well, I mean, this is minor, but a Moxon vise, you've got to take it from down below and put it up and clamp it in place, whereas the shoulder vise is always there and it's quick and convenient. You don't have to, you know, when you're done, and for the same reason, when you're done using your vise, you have nothing to move. It's not in the way. As far as holding power would be the same. Maybe this is a little bit quicker. My shoulder vise is a little bit quicker. But I think the only inconvenience of the Moxon vise is having to put it in place, clamp it in place, and remove it. I can't think of anything. And well, this is nitpicking, and the way I use this, and I do, is when you get it in place, when you get it installed, let me just get it there. You get it installed, and then you open it up to fit your piece of wood. I don't know why I bothered to do that. And you're going to take your piece out multiple times. Leave one of these alone. So tighten it, and then use this one to take it out, and that one to tighten it up again, instead of having to use both of them. So that just makes it a little bit quicker. I was never a big fan of those until what happened? Either I was somewhere using one or something, but I got to think, I said, that's actually really convenient. And then we started modifying these, and it is nice to have that piece up here. And the older you get, the less you want to have to bend over. Just, it's very convenient. Like it, we sell a boatload of them. My goodness, we sell a lot of those kits. And a big shout out to Willie, because he does it. Willie and Brandon. Who else is involved in modifying the kits, the Moxon vise kits? What do we do? So here, let me just show you, because you might just be in the mood. So here's the Moxon vise kit. I'll open it up and I'll show you why this might be a good consideration. We sell the whole thing ready to go if you want one that literally out of the box you clamp it on your bench. But if you want to make your own, this is what we include in it. There's the 4 nuts and the washers. So we've taken the wheels, the hand wheels, and Willie drills them out. Drills and taps it. And doesn't he also do a little counterboard on that too, Jake?
Yeah.
We include the wheel, the knob. So to put the knob on, you can start it by hand, but then you go in through the back side, and there is a, it is, you don't say tapped, what do you say? How do you describe the fact that there's a...
Well, it's cut with a broach.
No. How do you say that there is a hex? You know what I'm trying to say? I'm just trying to figure out how do you actually say it. And I can never, you know, I have got to do something with this that drives me crazy going through 500 of those. So on the ends of these, there is a hex hole called that. So you put this on, and then you come in through the backside with your wrench, and you snug it up. So that's ready to go. We include these. So these are oil impregnated brass or bronze?
Bronze.
Oil impregnated bronze bushings. So these go inside the wooden jaw so that that's not getting worn all the time, because that would wear relatively quickly. And then these are the the two threaded rods. So you can adjust you can put that rod wherever you want. So, but typically you're going to use anywhere from 1.5 inches down. So I don't know why you'd want, and I don't want the ends of these sticking way out either because it busts your knuckles on them. And then there's the two springs, the two coil springs. We get those custom made, and they go up inside. They're inside the jaw. When I open this up, you can see where they are. And that's what obviously what pushes back your jaw for you. And then the last thing we include is this piece of crubber that you can use to line the inside face of your jaw so that you will be able to grip your work a lot better. See if I can get this back together the way it's supposed to. It's got to come out. What was the question that I got drifted off on? Does anybody know? Anybody else paying attention? Frick, you playing the game?
Yep.
Yeah, boy. Okay, what's
The
next?
question was there a benefit to using a shoulder vise versus a moxon?
Okay, so I went a little far there. I just wanted to show you that if you want to make your own, how much do these go for, Jake?
175.
So 175 will get you a moxon kit. You can make your own. We sell the jaw if you don't have the capacity to process the hardwood for a jaw. And how's our inventory? We have lots of them. We just got a big shipment in, didn't we? Yes?
Yeah.
We're good. We're good. Okay, next, Frick, please.
Peter Rosa,
Hey, Peter.
is there a weight range where a bench becomes too light to be effective? What's the ideal weight range?
Huh. Well, I would want one to be too heavy as opposed to too light. Unless you can secure, well, yeah. With weight comes stability. I mean, when you pound on your bench top, you want it to be good and solid. So my bench top is, it's about 3 1/4 inches thick, maple. There's an apron on here that's 4 inches. And that's naturally gonna bring weight. Are these ones, the MDF ones, that's 3 inches thick. 3 inches of MDF, so that's heavy. 200? Yeah, they're close to 200. Nothing worse than working on a bench that's rocking and rolling. It's just terrible. So you want it to be solid. And in order to make it solid, it's going to be heavy. So unless you're having to pick it up and carry it downstairs every time you use it, I would make my bench nice and heavy. Nice and heavy, and make sure it does not rack. So let's go heavy. Next, Frick.
Robert DeVink
Hey, Robert.
in the chat says, I bought the plans for your Cosman workbench and 2 Schaumburg vises. How would you adapt a plan to include a face vise, tail vise, and the sharpening station?
How would I adapt the plans? Let's do that one at a time. So let's do this. Let's do the sharpening station first. Don't we include that in the video? Frick, Jake, can you get the camera? You want to be back a little bit? So how come we don't have a sharpening station on here?
It's right there. I don't know why it was taken off, but it's right underneath it.
So our sharpening station. Oh, we've changed this. We used to put them on with bolts. Now what we do is we make a sharpening station like this. So these two pieces go in between the two uprights, and then there's an embedded nut in this one, a T-nut in this one, and a bolt on the back side, and you just squeeze it so you can put it anywhere. You can adjust it to any height you want. When you've got students coming of all shapes and sizes, it's nice to be able to have that flexibility. So that's really easy. Now, if I was going to modify this is my tail vise. And we used to, when we first started doing this, we had 2 vices on there, but that's a big expense times 16 benches out there. So we thought, okay, you know what? If we leave this vise on the end, we can use it to dovetail with, and because there's a bench dog in here, we can use it to hold our work when we're planing. If you want to add a face vise, you put it right here. And the only modification you have to do is you have to take the profile. So now we're looking at it this way. You're going to take the profile of the vise, and you've got to cut that in the top of your apron. So that because you can imagine if you're installing this, it's going to be sitting back in this way. So you've got to be able to slide, that all has to come in, and your apron right here goes right up to the underside of the bench. So you just have to cut a slot out, and the nice thing about it is you can access it with a jigsaw and just cut that profile. If you want to make it easy, you can just cut a slot out there. Put that in place and mount it just like you'd mount this one. That's a piece of cake. Piece of cake, you can do it after the fact. Take your bench top off, cut that out. You only have to do one apron. You don't need to worry about the other one. What was the other thing? The bench hook, a bench sharpening station.
Face vise, tail vise, and the sharpening station.
Yep, that's it. We're covered. Good question. Next, Frick, please.
Don Jamerson.
Hey, Don.
What's Rob's idea to attach a tail vise with dog holes made up of birch ply, then attaching to MDF top? Would you use long spline and legs?
Whoa. Okay, start that over. Start again.
What's Rob's idea to attach a tail vise with dog holes made up of birch ply, then attaching to MDF top? Would you use long spline and legs?
Help me, Jake.
Attach a tail vise with dog holes.
So here's a tail vise. Let's make sure that we're using the right lingo. Tail vise is down here. Okay. So here's your tail vise. Now what's he want to do? He wants to attach the tail vise
with dog holes made up of birch ply.
You're gonna make dog holes or dogs?
You may be thinking of a wagon vise.
Yeah, that's what
No,
I'm
it must
thinking.
be a wagon vise.
A wagon? Okay, so I'm going to ask him to go in and ask this question again. So let me just give you a little bit of terminology. So in this position, we call it a tail vise. Over here, we would call it a face vise. This is a wagon wheel vise. So this has a dog strip, which is a block of wood that has two holes in it, has two bench dogs. It's got the screw attached to it. There's two pieces of wood, pieces of cocoa bolo, that are squeezed in between the top piece and the bottom piece. So this is two pieces. There's a slot cut out, and I have I've got a slot cut under here and a slot on this side. I've got two pieces of cocoa bolo that are long and narrow, and they slide in the groove on both sides, and they are squeezed. There's two lag bolts that go up through the bottom. And so one of these on one side and one on the other, and they're squeezed in that T-shaped opening in this dog strip, so that these move with that. And this moves because there's a block, there's a big nut right there, and then there's an attachment here where this piece of metal traps a T cut into the end of the threaded rod, and the what they just call it? This piece is attached to the end. So when I move that one way or the other, that dog strip moves back and forth. So we suspect that you were asking the question, but just didn't use the same terminology, so I can answer it. But you just clarify it, and we'll have another go at it. In the meantime, Frick, next.
Just a couple quick questions about what to use as a bench top. David Anthony says, would you consider using birch ply as a bench top?
Well, we just actually sold one today. So Jake, you want to walk one over? So this is our MDF top. Now, I like the MDF. It's water resistant, it's heavy, it's dense, and it's flat. a flat bench top is the equivalent to having a foundation for your house that is square and level. If your foundation was not square and level, then everything you do from there to the roof, you're going to have to be compensating for the fact that you didn't start out with a flat, square, level foundation. You build on a bench that's not flat, everything that you do on it is going to have that factored in, which will usually be a nightmare. So that's why it's not like the MDF. We also offer a 3-inch thick Baltic birch top. So for those of you who may not know, Baltic birch is plywood, but in normal plywood, you have whatever the brand is, or whatever the species is. If it's oak plywood, that means the outside piece of veneer is oak, and the outside piece of veneer back here sometimes is or isn't oak. So typically you only get one sheet of the good stuff. The interior is made up of a far less expensive wood, sometimes a weed. Baltic birch, this piece is birch, the next piece is birch, the next, all of it is birch. It's just glued together. One sheet is glued with the grain running this way, the next sheet is this way, this way, this way. And veneer, for anybody, veneer has a bad reputation, but you just have to understand, all veneer is a piece of wood that has been cut thin. So here's a piece of brown oak veneer, project we're working on right now. So that's a piece of brown oak that's been sliced to be, what is the thickness on that, Jake? 30 thou?
I think it's like around 30.
Let's just see. This is older veneer because the new stuff is not as thick. They figure out a way to cut more. So this is 38 thou, definitely old. So the new stuff you buy is a lot thinner than that, and I found that out the hard way because we're building a project right now using fiddleback ash, and the stuff that I had that left over was at least 40 years old. And the new stuff we bought was about 15 thou thinner, which just makes it a whole lot more fragile to deal with. So, all that to tell you. So here's our Baltic birch bench. Jake, can you swivel the camera? So same design. We use Baltic birch on the base for all of them, but this is 3 layers of 1-inch Baltic birch glued together. And if somebody wants a wooden top, they can have a wooden top. So what was the question, Frick? Boy, do I drift.
It just said, it was a couple questions about bench tops. But the first one was, do you consider using birch ply as a bench top?
I would do either or, no problem.
The second one in regards to that was, do you think, this is from 3 Kanos in the chat, what do you think of using a milled southern yellow pine construction lumber to make a slab bench top?
I'm not a fan of southern yellow pine, but you know what? If you have it, let me come back to that for just a second. I got a thought in my head. Ken, what's the difference? What's the material cost for MDF top versus the Baltic birch? Do you know?
The MDF.
You get your mic? What happened to that little knob on the end of it? The fuzzy ball?
It's charging.
It's right here.
Oh.
The MDF would be about 40% less.
The MDF is 40% less than the Baltic birch?
Yeah, just for the top.
Right. No, and I don't think you're gaining anything. So people often ask about holdfasts, and I don't think there'd be a problem with either one. I suppose most people would think that Baltic birch plywood would survive better, but we often paint the inside with cyanacrylate, and that'll really stiffen it up.
Talk about flatness. So, I mean,
yeah. The MDF, you got a better chance of getting a flat top with the MDF than you do with the Baltic birch. Now we have a $25,000 press that was made specifically We advertise our benches to be within 10 thou front to back, but sometimes they're as good as 2 thou. So this, and Chris, you've met Chris numerous times. Chris Davenport designed and built that for us. So, you know, that's a lot of money to put into making a press to do your one bench.
Talk about flatness of those in relation, keeping them.
Oh, that's good, thank you. So the question was southern yellow pine. So the downside to using solid wood is you're going to have to constantly be reflattening, because no matter what you do, it's going to move. I thought this was nice and stable. I've got to go in, I'm avoiding it. I've got to go in and flatten this bench top because it is no longer flat. That'll stay flat. It'll be flat today, it'll be flat in 10 years time and 20 years time. I would bank on this one more than this one, in what I just said, but hopefully that's stable and it'll stay put. The fact that it's bolted to the base underneath helps to hold it flat too. And you don't have expansion to worry about. The downside to working with solid wood on a bench top, I know it's romantic, but the downside is you've got a piece of material that is constantly going to be breathing, absorbing moisture, giving off moisture, and it's going to change with the seasons, and you're going to have to go in, and flattening a bench top is a big job. Big, big job. Next frick, please.
And then another question about Benchtop. Hi, Rob. This is from Christopher Hurst.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Rob. How do you feel about using a Formica type top over the MDF on your benches?
Formica. Well, I haven't had that term used in a long time. No, I wouldn't do that. What? I hate contact cement to begin with. When I hear the term Formica, I think of nightmares of when carpenters used to build their own kitchens, and my father used to do that, and then they'd go in Formica their countertop over top of plywood, and it would delaminate and blah. But I wouldn't want anything. I wouldn't want Formica on there either, just because it's too slippery. I can't think of any advantage that Formica would give you, other than it would be waterproof in the middle, but pain to deal with, I think. Next, Frick.
Skip Martin wants to know why you don't use holdfasts.
Probably for the simple reason that I never did, and the people I was around never did. So if that was something you were taught and you got to doing it, great. But I mean, I like my F clamps, so no reason. I don't dislike them for any particular reason. I just don't use them. And I know a lot of people use them to hold their boards in place when they're chopping for dovetails. But my short furniture making career, which was only lasted about 12 years, we starved to death, was I had to be fast. You're making minimum wage. You're fooling yourself. You think you make more than that. So everything you did had to be fast. I didn't want it to be sloppy, but it had to be fast. So to sit there and have to clamp pieces in when you're chopping dovetails, that took too much time. And you're pounding straight down. Why is it going to slide anyway? So I never did.
It's an extra step.
It's an extra step that I didn't deem necessary, but had I been taught that way, I would have thought differently. Next, Frick.
Hang on.
What's the matter?
Don Jamerson has commented back about the Wagon Vise situation.
Okay, what?
It was in fact a Wagon Vise that he was referring to. I meant the wagon wheel vise made up with birch ply to run the length of the bench, attaching the assembly to the MDF top with long splines and leg screws running the length.
Okay.
I think
Well, first of all, Don, your whole vise doesn't need to be any more than, this is 19 inches. So it doesn't have to go the whole way. But if you want to, I think you're saying make this whole make this a section and attach it. That's a good idea. You could go in. I would. I might use a couple of full-length splines for alignment purposes. I would probably bolt it on you know, going in this way, in between the dog holes. And then this is simple. This could be done with Baltic birch.
You're always talking about adding it to the MDF bench, right?
Yeah, he's gonna add, so that's what I mean. So I would build this, well, with the exception of this piece. So hold on a second. So I would, I'm thinking while I'm answering, I would take this section, which would end up being about 4 inches wide. So if I took that whole section, I could bolt it on here. And then you have to apply this end piece because everything works against this. So then you're gonna take that end cap, and that's gonna be attached here. I definitely wouldn't screw into the MDF. I would drill holes into the MDF. I have another hole coming up from the bottom, not coming through the top, where you could go in and apply a washer and a nut. And I would do 2 or 3 of those. That's doable. Yep, that's doable. I don't know if I would spend that kind of effort on an MDF top. I don't know what you're gaining. The advantage of the Wagon mill vise is your work is always supported. The disadvantage of this is sometimes you're working on a piece and you've got part of it hanging out here in midair. But the way to solve that problem is just to put more dog holes in so that you have very little sticking out there. So I don't see that tail vise, that Wagon mill vise, this Wagon mill vise being a huge advantage over what you can do with the Schoberg sticking out the end of that. So, I mean, if you just want to do it as a project, by all means, go ahead and send me a picture when you're done so I can pass it on to somebody else. Next, Rick. Any more? Ken, you get more vets? Yell, please.
Andrew Brown asks, what is the optimal...
What? You give an update on the viewer count.
Oh, we're at 496. It's the most we've had in a long time.
500?
Yep.
Hi, folks.
Oh, we just lost him.
Oh, frick. Go ahead. Jinx it.
Andrew
Well, it's a
Brown.
popular topic, benches. And we're getting to start the new year, and I got all these people that are wanting to become hand toolers.
And we have over 10 new reoccurring subscriptions already as well.
Oh, awesome. Let's go for 20. By the way, just a thought, where Jake and I are going to shoot a video soon on setting up a small home shop geared towards hand tools. And what we thought we would do is we're going to use the corner out there. We're going to build a wall, just a fake wall, or not a fake wall, but you know, a wall. Because the idea is that if you're using a spare bedroom, where you could turn a spare bedroom into a shop, you'd lose one wall to the wall with the window, and you'd lose another wall that had the door going in the closet. So essentially you only have 2 complete walls. And we'll set up a little shop and go through, and we'll talk about the necessary tools, bench modifications, the whole bit. I think it'll be fun. Okay, where were we?
Yeah, question from Andrew Brown in the chat.
Andrew, where is he?
Well,
say?
it doesn't say when they're in the chat, but what is the optimal / recommended thickness for Mox and Vise jaws? I bought Rob's kit, but I have to drive miles for hardwood of any kind.
So a Mox and Vise jaw, what is ours, Ken? Inch and 3/4? 2 inch. So we use 2 inch and we make them out of poplar. I'd rather be thicker than thinner.
That's Frick's motto too.
Yeah, it is.
You can also glue up a bunch of pieces of plywood. Anything, I can't think of an example where solid wood couldn't be replaced with multiple pieces of Baltic birch. I'm a huge fan of Baltic birch. It's the best of the plywoods. Any other plywood is just garbage. They have voids. I had a piece of walnut plywood. What did we pay for that? Do you remember?
Ooh, it was pricey.
Walnut plywood that we bought a long time ago, or not a long time ago, when we first moved in here. And I'll bet you walnut plywood today is probably $250, $300. And made a cut in it. And right underneath the veneer, so you've got the ply, by the time they sand the ply, you probably don't have more than 20 thou, a little skinny bit. And right underneath there was a big void, a big knot hole in the substrate. So wouldn't take anything for somebody to push their finger right through that veneer. So Baltic birch, you don't get that. There are no voids in there. So that's the wood, that's the Baltic, that's the plywood of choice. Anything you could make, anything on this Mox and Vise could be made up out of plywood, glued together to get the thickness that you want. But, we don't sell the jaw, do we?
Yeah,
Not for this. We sell the jaw for this.
all right, now.
Here's asking about the Mox and Vise. Yeah. Next, Frick.
Chris Laziki says,
Hi, Chris.
would you replace or resurface an old beat-up MDF benchtop?
Well, you could clean it up so the glue will stick to it and glue another piece on top of it. Then I imagine your only part that's destroyed is the top. So glue a new piece on top of it. Hush.
And the whole purpose
Hush
of
fell over
it,
the crowd.
that it's cheap to replace the top.
Well, it used to be. When we started making MDF tops, 1-inch MDF benches, the MDF top cost how much? Was it under
We
100?
used to call it $100 then.
Yeah. It was cheap.
That was bad.
And then during
That was
COVID,
bad
it
when
went up.
Bedrock planes were $14.
And then the price of that went up to how much?
Oh,
Didn't it go close to $300?
at one point.
Crazy. Crazy. By the way, be a great New Year's resolution would be to find a charity that really speaks to you. One that has purple in it. One that includes the sacrifice of so many men and women for our freedom. There you go. Become a monthly donor to the Purple Heart Project. We should start giving these people a good shout out.
Hey, we're talking.
Huh?
500 viewers.
We should start giving a nice shout out to our supporting members. I'm going to try to do that in our next one. Next, Frick, please.
Black Tenant Furniture says, I'll be building my own bench next year. Any non-traditional accessories you might suggest adding? Thinking outside the box.
Yeah. A bench lamp. A bench lamp. My goodness, you have to have a bench lamp. The older you get, the more light you need. So we do this. Al turns these. Al's our mushroom man. We call this a mushroom. So it's a maple peg. Looks like a mushroom. I won't tell you what somebody else wants. And it fits in that hole. So you can place it anywhere you want. Now the reason we do that is the stem on the lamp is weak, and it's got a real weak point. So if you simply drilled a 1/2-inch hole and used that, which I did way back when, the hole gets all chewed up and it'll eventually break. So we take these lamps. We sell these lamps. We take them and we cut and insert a what's the size of that? 3/8?
10 mil.
10 mil steel rod that we put up in there and then squeeze it into place, and then that fits into a hole in the mushroom. The mushroom fits the 1-inch dog hole. We make them for 3/4 well, so you get a lot more wear surface. And because of all your bench dog hold, you can put it anywhere you want. So you can get, and I love this because you can reach around, swivels, and you can pour tons of light on what you're working on. So that would be an accessory. Over here, I use my shooting board as, it's probably my most used device outside of a tool that I have. That thing goes from there to there 50 times during the day. So we put in a little tray right here that an 18-inch shooting board slides into. So it's always right there at your fingertips. We put a This was just a big opening. And because we have classes here and people need a place to store their tools, so I would do something like that. It'll just fill up with junk, but at least it's not landing on the floor. Casters, if you need mobility, you want to be able, it's so much nicer to have these casters so you can move it around wherever you want. Definitely a tool tray. I have to have a tool tray. If nothing else, at least the stuff falls into the tool tray instead of on the floor. I would do bench dog holes on both sides. Not that I ever use these, but it's great to be able to put your bench lamp anywhere you want. And if you have a friend over and he's left-handed, he can use that. What else have we got on here that we would... Anything else? If there was any other accessory, of course, your sharpening station over here. If there were any other things, I think we would have already done them. That's what I can think of. If you look at my bench, I have my it's funny how often I don't use this, whereas I used to use it a lot. My bench brush hooks on there. I have, this is not really a part of the bench, but I have a bench slave, it's referred to. And this is a device that you would use, has various holes, you can adjust that peg. If you're planning a really wide board, you can support the board there, and the other end of it would be in the vise. Doesn't get used a lot, but when you do need it, you'll be glad you had it. I would probably, if my bench was going to be permanent, it would be nice to have a plug, an outlet on here for when you're using your router or whatever it is, but we've grown fond of that little cordless DeWalt is great. Oh, I love that thing. No cord to drag around, and just, wow. They've come a long way with cordless tools. Big advantage. That's it. Next, Rick.
Steve in Virginia.
Hi, Steve.
What setup would you use to cut dovetails on the basic bench?
What setup would I use to cut dovetails on a basic bench? Did I get that right?
That's what it says, yeah.
Okay. Well, I want my bench lamp. If you, I'm assuming a basic bench, you're going to have a vise. So you're going to have your vise here or your Moxon vise, either or. And the only other thing is, in all of our benches out there, we include a piece of plywood that's about 12 by 8 inches, and we use it as a backer block, so when you're chopping waste out, you don't end up going through and scoring your bench. That's your sacrificial block. And that's probably it. I don't think there's anything else that I would add. There is something I would add, but it has not ready to be released yet, but it will be real soon. I'll save a little bit of suspense there. Jeff knows what I'm talking about. Call it the Rob's Dovetail Square. Next, Rick.
Joseph Corte in Linden, Michigan.
Hi, Joseph.
What are your thoughts with respect to the English-style workbench?
I don't know what you mean by an English-style workbench. So if you can rephrase that question and throw in some features on an English-style workbench that you can, and I'll be happy to comment on. I'm thinking of Alan Peters' bench was nothing special. So, yeah, give me a little more detail.
Dan Elsey in Virginia.
Hey, Dan.
What is Else?
Dan,
What is
do
the
you know
best?
him, Jake?
Yeah, he's in the class. He's made 3.
Oh, bench brigade, bench builder. Yes. Sorry.
He says, what is the best way to keep thin super glue from splashing out when firming up the bench's dog holes?
Use those little, what do we call them, Jake? Jake? What's it called?
What is what called?
Those little tips. Huh?
They're called whips.
What?
Whips.
Whip? W-H-I-P?
Whip. As in cool whip.
Whip it good.
Now you're showing your 80s flair, Frick. Here's what they are. So this fits on the end on your bottle of your cyanacrylate, and it's great. Allows you to go in there and with pinpoint accuracy. You can get it. They're cheap. You buy them in a bunch.
It was 100 for $6.
Yeah, because they last a long time. I thought they would clog up, but they don't. But that's the best thing that ever happened to cyanacrylate. Next, Rick.
Jerry Gillette would like you to briefly describe how your bench dogs are made.
Jerry
in the chat, yep.
My bench dogs. Okay, I will. Ken, do you have any more vets to say hello to? Okay.
Oh, Ferris Butler, I don't know if he's-
Ferris? Howdy, Ferris. I can't see. Just let me clean my glasses real quick. So I'm going to go through, and you got any water, Jake, in here? My drinking water.
What is in that?
Lemon. So this bench dog, I think that might have been my idea. I don't think I saw it anywhere
I
else.
think it was either yours or Kyle's.
Oh yeah, Kyle. Well, I get most of my inspiration from Kyle. Whenever I see him with an idea, I think I'm never going to do that. Kyle. Okay. So there's my square. This is a bird's eye one. So the first thing I did, I used a straight bit, and I cut a groove. Let me make this a little easier.
Bring the pack over.
Huh?
Just bring this in.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. An awful lot of money sitting there.
And I didn't spend it.
Yeah, I doubt. Can you see it?
A straight bit?
No, the
What?
T. The T.
Oh, no, but you want the straight bit first.
Well, I know, but I want the T. Oh, there it is. Okay.
That
And a straight bit.
That's what we use for throw back there, the tall ones.
Okay. So the first thing you do, you in close enough? Use a bit, the width of the opening, and I cut a slot all the way down to here. Then you buy one of these, they use them for hanging stuff. It's a T-slot,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Now I use that first so that it does some clearing for you. So then you use your T-slot. You got to be careful with this, this is done in a router table. You're going to use your T-slot to make that T-shaped opening. And I go all the way to all the way here and then back. Then you take a piece of durable wood. This is Babinga. Why is this one not sliding? It's a little jammed up. It needs to be freed. Free bird. There. So then I cut this piece, and I probably left it on a larger piece of wood. It's dangerous trying to deal with something that small. So I would have taken a piece of wood that would be this width first, that wide, and probably that thick, sorry, and about that wide. And then I would have made cuts. Here, let me just take it like this. So here I've got a piece of material, and then I would have come in here and I would have made these cuts, one on that side, one on this side. And while it was still in this form,
You mean to get two out of that?
no, one, that didn't show up very well. Let me go over my scrap bin and see if I can find a piece of stock solid wood. Yeah, there's a little piece of pine. That'll show better. All right. So I'm going to cut this piece of wood down to this width, minus a little, this width right here. And then I'll come in, and with the table saw, I'll make a cut like that, and a cut like that. Okay. Ultimately, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut this off right here, but now at least I've got something to work with. Then I'm going to drill. I'm going to take the, probably can't find one because I would have already used them, but I would take a pen apart.
Show your drawing there again. I don't think they could see it.
Okay. My drawing? Right. So I'm going to take this piece. I'm going to take the spring, 2 springs out of a ballpoint pen, measure the diameter, and I'm going to drill a hole that goes down probably that deep, I don't know. And I would put one, maybe one right about here and one back here somewhere. And then I could slip that spring down in there. And on the underside, on this side, corresponding hole, I would drill a hole here and there, obviously corresponding with the 2 holes that I drilled here. They wouldn't need to be very deep, maybe just a 1/16 of an inch. Then I would go ahead and I would cut this piece off right here. So now I've got my T. You remember how I did this. So I put my spring in, and I used something to hold it down while I slid that piece of T in. Oh, that's right.
What did you do?
That's right. I had to keep it from going into the first hole.
The first hole.
Yeah. So I would have had a piece of something thin on the underside of this, so that as I slid my T over top of the first spring, it wouldn't pop up into that first hole. And then once I got it in past there, I would take whatever piece of whatever it was out, and I would move this along. Just before this came to cover the second hole, I would put the next spring in, and the spring would go down, and I would have to hold it in place with something, and then I would move this over. And when I moved this over, it would eventually get to a point where the spring would pop up into that little recess of a hole at the same time this one did. So now it's locked in place, it can't fall out. And as long as you didn't make it too close tolerance, which is what I did, I still have spring here, I just don't have spring here because this is jammed up. But now let's grab another one that works better. Here. Right. So now you've got this spring-loaded little T
It gives you tension.
that gives you tension along the entire length, so that it'll allow your bench dog to stay put wherever you put it. And if you could look real close in there, you'd see a little spring, but you can't. And that's how I did them. Next, Rick.
Clive Barrett in Island View, New Brunswick.
Where's that, Ken?
Island View?
Island View.
What's that?
Is that St. John?
Yeah, it's over. Just on that warm, isn't it?
Or there's an Island View there, but I'd never heard of it.
I don't think he meant. Well, anyway,
Says New Brunswick.
fellow New Brunswicker. What's his first name?
Clive.
Clyde or Clive?
Clive with a V.
Clive. How did Clive?
I've built the sharpening station on my workbench. It works very well. However, it accumulates debris from the workbench all the time. A retractable cover would be a useful addition to the design. Have you considered this?
Yeah, we did. We didn't go any further than that. That's why we have bench brush, because, yeah. If it was my own bench, something like that I could do. But when you have it and the public are using it, I mean, stuff's going to get destroyed. And we move the benches around out there a lot, and my grandkids are out there playing, so, yeah. But I agree. If you look over there, there's all kinds of, everything ends up over there. We just cleaned off. That's why I got compressed air right hanging above me. Next, Rick.
I'm running out here.
Are you? What are our numbers?
513 viewers.
How many?
13 new reoccurring subscriptions.
So we need seven new reoccurring donations so we can give away 2 prizes tonight. Step up. It's a good cause.
Chooch in Fall River, Nova Scotia.
Hey, boy, we were getting all the locals.
It's called a keyhole cutter, that.
What? A keyhole cutter? Yeah.
Do you see any value in adding a leg vise to a workbench? My dad and grandfather always favored them.
I don't. I don't because they get in the way. They got in my way, and there's a rod down there not very far. So, you know, the downside to any kind of a vise like this is you hit these rods. The upside to a shoulder vise is you have all that clearance, nothing in the way. So the leg vise, that has a piece down there that's going to be in your way. A Moxon vise is also an advantage that way, with the exception of you've got to drop it down in from the top, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. Next, Frick, please.
Scott Blake in Ohio.
Hey, Scott.
With a trestle-style bench, do you attach a shoulder on the top of the legs, similar to the foot on the bottom of the legs? What is the best way to attach the bench top to the base?
With a trestle-style bench.
Do you attach a shoulder on top of the legs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so if you look at this, Jake, can you? This is a big square O, and then this is part of that, and the bolt goes up through here that holds onto the top. On this style of bench, this fancier foot, there's an equal piece up here, and again, that strengthens that trestle, and you bolt to your bench up through that. So yes. Next, Frick, please.
I think you've covered this, but Lane Carter in Arkansas says...
Lane, or?
Yeah, Lane Carter in Arkansas.
Hi, Lane.
What finish, if any, is good to put on the surface of a workbench?
Just anything that will keep it clean, mostly, and keep glue from sticking to it. So if you can spray's fast. If you can't, oil's easy. We use, the oil that I like to use is, it's a tung oil product, meaning there's other additives to it. It's made by a company called Circa 1850, and I've used it for 40 years. Really like it, but yeah, that's the only purpose for finish on a bench is just to keep it clean. Make it so that when you get glue on there, you can remove it. Next, Rick.
Picking here. Michael Schick wants to know...
Hi, Michael.
What is the walnut blocks on your shooting board for?
The walnut block. Oh, can't tell you. They're not walnut. What is it, Jake?
Oh, what?
What is this wood? Patagonian rosewood. And this is part of something new. Can't talk about it just yet, because then I get in trouble. Patagonian rosewood. And if you want to get some, Mel at Exotic Woods in Burlington, Ontario. Next, Rick.
Sherwood R again. He says, how often do you respray or re-oil your MDF tops?
Well, so ours gets serviced a little more than most because we have at least 6, if not 8 students, using that bench in the run of a year, and people inadvertently, when they're cutting dovetails, will saw and they'll hit the bench and leave a gouge in it. So what we do to fix it, we go in with some cyanacrylate and soak the scratch, and that'll stiffen up the top surface, and then we just flush it up if it's sticking above the surface. And other than that, I mean, we've gone through and put another coat of oil on those benches tops at least once. It just starts to get scratched up and beat up looking, and you can go in and freshen it up with a coat of oil or lacquer, depending on what you have on it. We've done at least once, maybe twice. Next, Frick.
How many hours did you have in your bench build? That's from Joseph Bushnell.
How many hours did I have in which bench?
Probably the one you're standing in front of.
That one? Well, there was 172 episodes. 170, 180 half-hour episodes. We did, I'll just tell you some of the things that we didn't film every procedure, meaning if I already cut dovetails there, we didn't bother showing you cutting dovetails over there, we do that off camera. Everything we did was shown, but we tried not to be repetitive, so we would do it after the fact. After I built those stretchers in the bottom, I got thinking, I said, I'd like to dress those up a little bit. So we took them off, and I veneered bird's eye on the top and on both sides. That was an ad. We added bird's eye. We added bird's eye to, along here, about 1/8 inch piece of bird's eye. Anywhere where it wasn't going to get heavy use, we dressed it up with bird's eye. So that wasn't necessary, but we did it. So if we filmed, say we filmed 180 episodes, that would be 90 hours. And I would say we could easily almost, if we'd be safe to say double that, let's say 150 hours. Yeah, 150 hours.
And they can watch it all online.
Yeah, it's all, it's on our online. So we have an online workshop. I don't think we haven't mentioned this in a long time. We've been doing it since 2011. We film, now we do 3 45-minute episodes each week, with the exception of when we're teaching or Christmas. We just did one episode this week. And there's a multitude of projects on there. And it was done with the intent of teaching you how to building a scale model. If I had it right here, I'd show you, but I don't know where it is. We're currently working on a desk. And then we build a mock-up, and then we go through the process. And from choosing lumber to cutting joints, we don't cut out the screw-ups, and there's plenty of those. Show you how I recover. Sometimes I have to shut the camera off while I think or throw something at the wall. Then we turn the camera back on, and we go through the process when we come up with an idea on how to fix it. Have never built something that didn't have a major flaw somewhere that had to be either repaired or worked into the design. You can join that. How do they join?
Rob'sWorkshop.com.
Yeah. Oh, that's separate now? Yeah, right. So you go to Rob'sWorkshop.com. I can't remember what the fee is, but anyway.
Okay, last question of the night.
Last question of the night.
It's from Jeff Shanab, a frequenter.
Jeff Shanab?
Shanab. He said,
Where does he live from?
YouTube.
Where does he live?
How would you dovetail a long board if you don't have a high enough ceiling?
Wow.
For example, like
Yeah. Well, okay, so the first time I ran into this problem was the first bench that I built, which is now Jake's desk. And I was at BYU. So I stood on the top of a bench, and I clamped this thing to something else. I built a framework of some sort so that when I was standing on top of the bench, I was at the appropriate height. In my next shop, my bench was on the second floor, so I had a trap door right underneath the vise, and I could open it up and I could drop a board down. I could comfortably cut a dovetail at the end of a 12-foot board. Don't have that in here. So if you have a staircase, figure out some way to clamp it to the side of the stairs so you can stand there and do it. There are some people that'll do it this way, which is not my cup of tea. Trying to think of when we've done them before. Oh yeah, when the guys are in here and the vets have built the tool trays.
Yeah.
What?
If your ceiling isn't tall enough.
Oh, you mean I'm drifting?
Yes, quite far right.
If your ceiling isn't tall
You
enough.
don't have the capacity to stand the board upright.
Well, I often thought, could I lay on the floor with a pair of glasses on and clamp it and essentially be laying like this and sawing? Because I think that's your only option, right? You can't stand it up. So you would have to do that.
You could
Now,
lay on top of it. If you had a couple boxes to lay on, right? Then the sawdust isn't falling into your face.
yeah, it's keeping your saw square, having not done that like that. Yeah, that'd be tough. That might be a time when I would actually use some kind of a guide to hold my saw. Just because you're doing it one time, having not done it before, and I want to get it right, so don't have time to practice. So, just kind of a block of wood, something so that when you're sawing on the end of the board, I don't even know how you could get in it and do it comfortably. How would you hold it? If I was trying to saw on the end of these, how would I hold that? I would almost have to hold the saw like this, and I would have a clamp. I would have the board clamped, and I could use something like this to keep my saw square. So when I'm making my cut, it's square. And if I had to, I would cut an angle on the end of that so I could follow it. It would be awkward, really awkward. Now, I haven't had to do that, so I would give it some thought and come up with something, but do a practice cut or two before you actually do the real thing. All right, what was our final count tonight, Frick? What did we peak at? No? Over 500 though? That's good, nice to have an audience. Huh? 519. Everybody's interested in workbenches, I know I am. And Ken, was there any vets to say hello to that came on late?
No, not that I saw.
Okay, how did we do in
I think we're still at 13.
13? So we're giving away 3 dead cat sweaters, thanks to Moose. She didn't see him tonight. And then we'll give away a prize, and I'll think about it while we're doing that. So you want to do the draw for 3 dead cats?
Sure.
These are sweaters that have the Purple Heart logo on it. It's a wonderful sweater. It keeps you warm. It's cozy.
All right, we're drawing all 3 at the same time. Here we go. Winners, just email support@RobCosman.com. Let you know your size. First one's going to Jim Christmas on Long Island, New York.
Jim Christmas?
Yeah.
Mary, Jim.
Here,
Second winner is Paul Krukowski in Lexington, Kentucky.
Hey, Paul. Congratulations.
Number 3 is Richard Mark in Defiance, Missouri.
Richard, congratulations. We've got to say hello to Angie and introduce you to her. Angie, oh, wow, how many years has she been with us? 5?
oh, well, as long as I have, which is
6?
6.
So this is Angie. Angie does all of our t-shirts, all of our Purple Heart t-shirts. She and her sister Lynn do all of the packaging, and they fold them so nicely. And she also sent me a Christmas present, which I thoroughly enjoy. So I have a new, she gives me a hockey calendar every year with a couple of spare sticks for when I break mine. That'll go up on the wall. I took the old one down. It was stuck on February, but I'll try to do better this time. And she always gives me some goodies. I always get a notebook that usually takes me at least a week to lose, and a pen, and there's a picture of her and I on there when I went out to meet her. And I always get some hockey napkins that could use at one of our work parties. And the 2 chocolate bars are already gone because I love dark chocolate, and they're the ones that don't have added sugar, and they're great. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate my Christmas present. Did Luther make it on tonight?
No.
He's sleeping. He's tired. Poor Luther. Okay. What are we giving away, Jake?
Something to do with the workbench.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. How much is a Mox and Vise?
Full size, $375.
Ooh,
Let's do that.
jeez.
Let's give away we're gonna give away that full-size Mox and Vise that's all ready to go. That's a nice present. Who are we giving it to?
Let me switch here. All right, we are giving it to. Drum roll. I need a drum roll sound effect.
You should have one.
I know. That's what I'm just thinking.
on,
Why haven't I thought of
Well,
that before?
I'll get, who's my buddy, the drummer?
It's going to Bart Anderson in Bullhead City, Arizona.
Bart? Congratulations, Bart.
By the way, Bart, get a 5.5, not a 4.5.
Why, did he already buy one?
No, he asked that question. If
Oh, yeah, you
recommend
want
a
5.5
or 4.5.
Yeah. Paul Deacon is what I was thinking. Paul Deacon, who's the drummer for the Mavericks, has been to our shop and come to some of our classes. Good guy. We'll get him to do a drum roll 15-second spot for us. All right, we're on in 2 weeks.
I think I might DJ.
Hey, just a
Stay
quick note.
tuned.
So I know there's still spots available in the schedule for Purple Heart / Training the Hand. October's full. Do you guys know if any other class is full? There's 7 civilian spots in each one. We're still taking applications for the veterans, the scholarship spots for the combat wounded vets. If you want your choice, with the exception of October, you can still have your choice of class. And I will be teaching 23rd and 24th, 24th and 25th. 23rd and 24th of January, Friday and Saturday, at the Orlando Woodcraft Store. The Friday class is going to be through Dovetails, the 10-hour hands-on workshop, and includes your lunch. And the Saturday is a half blind. The through Dovetail is a prerequisite. And it too is a 10-hour class. We'll supply all the wood. The benches are there, the vises are there. You just got to bring your tools. There's a list. You can sign up for it on their website. That's the Orlando Woodcraft. If you can't find it, contact us and we'll direct you. But I'll see you down there. If anybody's in the area, anybody anywhere. It's the only place we teach outside of here from now on. Okay. Hope you had a good 2024. Looking forward to a fantastic 2025. Jeff knows what I'm talking about. And if we can help you, come see us. All right? Thank you for your support. Appreciate it. This means a lot to us, the Purple Heart Project. It's our driving force. I should also mention, I'll talk next time about Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which is the charity that we work with, building beds for children that don't have a bed to sleep in. We'll devote a little bit of time to that on our next episode. Okay, you guys have a safe holiday season, and we will see you early in 2025.